Hello and welcome to the Hack Responsibly podcast, where we get to know NetSPI's technical leaders. I'm your host, Karl Fosaaen, and today we'll be speaking with Phil Young, who leads up our mainframe testing team here at NetSPI. It's always fun getting a chat with Phil about mainframes, conferences, all things hacking related. We had a great chat on this episode. Here's Phil. All right, we have Phil Young here with us today from NetSPI. Phil, how's it going?
Good, good. Enjoying my nice winter San Diego weather.
I'm jealous. It's a little gray up here at the moment.
Yeah,
Really,
yeah.
really getting into the heart of the winter time here up in Oregon. So, yeah.
I was just talking to someone in Waterloo, Ontario, and it's already snowing and awful out there. And I told them it's like a beautiful fall day today here in December.
Yeah, slightly jealous here. Well, for folks that don't know you, do you want to give kind of a quick background on who you are, what you do at Nets?
Sure. My name's Phil Young. I am the director of mainframe pen testing here at NetSPI. It will be a surprise to some listeners that NetSPI does do mainframe pen testing. We do. We're one of the few firms in the world that actually does do mainframe pen testing. If you haven't heard of me or what I've done, you are interested in mainframe hacking, then you've definitely heard of Soldier of Fortran. That's what I go by on Twitter.
Okay. Yeah, I think that's probably where I first would have gotten to know you.
Yeah.
I know we got introduced through a mutual friend at some point at a DEF CON, but yeah, I think I was aware of some of your stuff from there from a while back.
Yeah, I've been talking at conferences since God, 2012 about this.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah, I gave my first talk at a B-Sides Las Vegas, and I thought, good, now someone else will pick up the mantle, and no one did.
And here we are now.
And here I am. Yep.
Well, probably a good point to ask you, how did you get your start in kind of cybersecurity?
Mine goes way back to the 90s, where I was a little hacker kid on BBSs. And that's sort of where the interest in exploring systems and exploring networks really came from and exploring just finding stuff. I would download software, like commercial software from a BBS just to try it out. Like I don't know what I needed Lotus 1, 2, 3 for. But I just thought it was
You
cool
might
and
need it.
interesting, you know. And then that got me into finding out about like X25 networks, and that led into, finding, especially the hard part was, I was in Canada, and so there's not many companies that were on data pack. And so I ended up having to spend a lot of time finding workarounds to connect to networks like Telenet or TimeNet down in the States.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah. There's going to be a total of like six people in the audience who know what data pack is.
Yeah,
So
see, I'm scratching my brain here to go back. I mean, I was starting IRC days,
yeah,
and
this is pre that this would be before that. This is like the
yeah.
proto of that. I'm sure IRC was
Okay.
around at the same time, right? But I didn't have internet, so I was stuck
Yeah.
with free BBSs.
Gotcha. Well,
Yeah.
I think you'll appreciate this then. I popped into a Barnes and Noble the other day and picked up a copy of 2600 to bring
Nice.
into the Portland office, and I was kind of upset that not that many folks actually knew what 2600 was.
Yeah, it's funny because back in the day, really the only place to get information was some BBS zine or 2600,
Yeah.
right? Like Frack was not published back then on like and mailed anywhere. Like, could you imagine back in the 90s there were no hacker zines being sent to like Barnes and Noble,
Right.
except for one, which was 2600.
Right. Well,
Right.
that's partly where I got my start in
Yep.
security. It was like, oh no, this isn't just like people randomly doing this. This is actually kind of organized, and there's people that want to talk to each other about this. This is awesome. I want to be a part of that.
I
Yeah.
remember my first 2600 meeting where I got to meet other people who thought like I did, and it was amazing.
I'm curious, was that a positive experience?
For me, yeah, but that's because I
Okay.
was in my 20s by the
Ah,
time I got around to it, right? And a lot of the other members were in their 20s, so it worked out, right? And keep in mind, drinking in Canada is 19,
yeah.
so we could go hang out at a bar.
Yeah, I think my experience was probably a little bit different.
Yeah.
I don't want to out the specific 2600 group, but the one I went to, I think was A little bit more kind of closer knit, and it was harder to
Yeah.
break into that group.
Yeah.
And you show up and you're like, "Hey, I'm here for the 2600 meeting." And they're like, "Oh, okay. Well, what do you know?" I'm like, "Well, what do you mean? What do I know? Like, I know that it's
Mm.
supposed to be here today."
Huh.
And they were a little like closed-minded about new members. So, yeah.
Yeah.
Eventually,
Yeah. I think every region sort of has their own kind of like meetup regardless. Like I know down here in San Diego, we have the DC, the DEF CON groups meetup, which is huge here and great and it's very welcoming.
that's good to hear. Yeah,
Yeah.
I find Portland's the same way, Minneapolis, prior to that, where I used to live, exactly the same way. That
Yeah.
such a good community around there. And likewise with Portland here.
Yep.
Well,
I
cool.
lived in the Bay Area for a bit and I really miss the Silly Sec folks.
Oh,
Yeah,
yeah, I
this the
haven't,
Silicon Valley security meetup.
yeah, I've never been down there for that, but have definitely bounced around to a couple of different cities for local meetup group kind of things. So
Yeah,
cool.
they're cool.
Well, if you can go back to early career Phil and give yourself a piece of advice, or I guess anyone who might be starting out in their cybersecurity career, any advice or specific pieces of advice that you give to somebody?
Yeah, I mean, I'm gonna call it when I was starting out, I had met with someone who was well established in their career, and I asked them, what do you like, how do you get into this job? Because I really wanted to work in cyber, but there were no paths to cyber back then, right? Like not none official paths. And I remember talking to someone who had just gotten off stage, giving a talk at a conference, and he gave me the advice of just do stuff. And it's something I do to this day. It's about doing just do stuff. It doesn't matter what you do, whatever your interest is, whatever your passion is, do stuff in that area, right? Like if you're interested, like obviously I'm interested into mainframes. I do tools, I do research, I do stuff in that space. Does all my research pan out? Often no. But I learn more about the platform, I learn more about Python, I learn more about how things work even if I don't get to do what I'm trying to do, right? And so, and there's, I'm talking about writing but you don't even need to go that far. Even if it's just learning how to use Docker and setting up a
Yeah.
home lab with that, just do stuff, right? Because nothing's more impressive to me than when I'm talking to someone who's interested in entering the field and they've done not just, the typical like Vuln Hub or, all the sort of online training sites, but actually runs their own labs, has research into the tools, has written scripts for Nmap or, plugins for Burp. And they don't even need to be very challenging things. Like you could write a Burp plugin that just says hello world, right? But now you understand how the plugin works and how the
Yep.
tool runs, right? And so that's my philosophy my whole career has just been to do stuff.
I love that. That's totally in line with my recommendation. I always just say, show up. And
Yep.
it basically what you're saying here is like do things. If it's showing up for local security group meetups or
Yep.
just contributing to some kind of open source project. Yeah, every little bit kind of helps you get started. And yeah,
Yep.
definitely a snowball effect over time.
Yeah, I'm the track chair for B-Sides Las Vegas Proving Ground. And and I to me that's a huge thing to submit a talk. Just submit a talk. Like I give workshops on writing CFPs, and sure, not all your CFPs are going to be great, and they're not going to all get accepted. But if you're interested in giving talks, just start submitting CFPs. You will get feedback on why it didn't get accepted, and you can hone it from there. But if you don't submit, you'll never know like what you could do differently.
Oh yeah. Yeah,
So,
it's a solid learning experience, as
yep.
painful as it may be sometimes.
Hmm.
Yeah.
For sure.
Well, speaking of, tools and kind of creating things, I think everybody kind of has their go-to technique, or at least I think it kind of goes in phases, right? Like some things are working better, some weeks or some years. Do you have a go-to technique or tool or approach that you go to in, it could be either mainframe assessments or anything else you might be working on?
All right, I'm gonna go hyper specific for mainframe, and then for the general people, I'm gonna give my other favorite thing.
I love it.
So for mainframes, I have just like a little pocket of tools in my enumeration GitHub, which is open source and freely available. I'm super open source. I love open source things. I begrudgingly use a Mac for work. So, those tools, I use them on every engagement and I'm updating them all the time. They let me sort of peer into my access rights and sort of programs and whatnot that I might be interested in looking into further when I'm doing a mainframe pen test, right? So these are things like I have a script, I have a program that's written in assembly for System Z where it tells me my access rights to APF authorized libraries. I use that on every engagement because if I can write to an APF authorized library, then I can take over the entire environment. And I'd like to say that it's rare that that happens, but I would say it's like a 50-50, maybe even 60-40. I'm able to do Privesc just with this one tool, right? The tool doesn't
Nice.
to do the Privesc for you. It's an enumeration tool. So you still need to know how to do the Privesc. But I use it on every engagement, right? I have another tool called enum. It's a Rex script. Rex is a very old scripting language, but it allows me to probe the system by looking in memory at specific items that I would be interested for during a pen test. I use those tools every single time. So those and I'm updating them constantly. I just pushed out a major update to enum 2 weeks ago to so that it would one check for more stuff, but also format the output in a more pleasing way than having to dig through pages of output for potential findings. That's the mainframe stuff. For the non-mainframe, which is going to be like 99% of the audience, my go-to technique and stuff is like I'm a network person, right? I'm a networking person. That's where I cut my teeth. And Nmap to me is still just the gold standard. I use it for every engagement. I have written Nmap scripts. The Nmap scripting engine is super powerful if you know how to take advantage of it. It is, I really, really like it. And, I use it we do, mainframe network pen tests. I use it on every network mainframe pen test because I wrote the scripts that are included in Nmap to do mainframe pen testing. But I also use it at home to check what weird devices are on
Oh
my
my
home
gosh.
network and what are they
Yeah.
doing, right? Like,
Yeah.
or I use it I had a project where I was doing a full scan of the internet with mass scan to find internet facing mainframes. And then I would use Nmap to refine the data down, right? And I had to automate all that and script it all up. So, that is my like Nmap to me is my go-to Swiss Army knife for everything.
I'm right
Network
there
related.
with you.
Yeah.
Yeah, your your home network comment, I did
Oof.
that exact thing just a couple of months ago because I had something that I had added to my network, couldn't really pin it down with the MAC address. I'm like, I think it's probably this device, but I'm not sure. Gave it a quick scan, got a banner grab back. Oh yeah, it's definitely that thing that I just added to the network. All right, we'll
That's
patch
how I find my lost Raspberry Pis,
it.
which are in the house somewhere.
Yeah, I got a couple of those. They might be powered on. I'm not sure.
Well,
Uh,
I converted an old Dell monitor into a magic mirror without the mirror part into like a smart display for my family, and I put a nice wood frame around it, and that just runs off a Raspberry Pi.
oh, okay.
Yeah, but sometimes I need to update it, and I can never remember the IP
Oh,
address,
yeah.
so I got to hunt for it.
Totally fair.
And that's when I find out my wife's air purifier is also on my home network.
I went down the Ubiquity rabbit hole a while
Nice.
back here, and now I have just completely over-engineered my network, and it's kind of ridiculous at this point, but I'm happy with it. So, yeah.
Yeah, I've been thinking about going there. I got commercial TP-Link wireless access points in my home
Okay.
because I was tired of having shoddy wireless coverage.
Yep.
But I'm just using their like soft control infrastructure in a Docker container. I haven't bit the bullet and bought the actual head unit to like run all my networking through someday.
Future project, right?
Yeah, sure.
Taking it back a little bit towards mainframe testing, but also like kind of
Mhm.
pen testing as a whole, I feel like the mainframe side of things, particularly as it applies to pen testing or pen testing applied to mainframes, whatever, I feel like that field has evolved a ton. I remember seeing presentations that you were doing a while back, and that seemed just like the start of people diving into more of the mainframe stuff.
Mhm.
How do you feel that whole landscape has kind of shifted in the last, 5 to 10 years
I have seen major maturation, we'll say, in the space in the last 10 years. When I started, I there was one other person like me, Mark Wilson. I'll give a shout out to Mark Wilson. And he spoke at Share, which is an mainframe industry conference, but that's about it, right? And his talks were more about like, please, lock your machines down better. It's not that hard to hack them, but never enough details. And so that was super frustrating for me. But at the time, I was shocked. The reason I honestly started talking about mainframe cybersecurity was because I was working at a company that if the mainframe went down for an extended period of time, I would likely be out of a job, but lots of people would be out of money, right?
Yep.
And I was blown away by how systemically important the platform was versus how much focus was spent on it. And the focus was zero, right? Like I could never. I remember scouring for like other mainframe talks at HackerCons, none of any import. And there might be. I remember there was one at Derby. I really don't want to call the person out, but there was one at Derby where their talk about hacking the mainframe stopped when they got a TSO account, right? And
Okay.
that's like me saying like, yeah, I'm gonna do a Windows domain pen test and here's my talk about it. And I stop after I dump the hash on someone's machine and crack their password. And that's where I end the talk.
Yeah.
Right. And it's like, well, no, that's not, you didn't do anything on the domain. So same thing with like the mainframe. And so it was really out of concern about, I worked in audit before I started doing the, pen testing and stuff full time. Um, and it was out of a concern of like, well, how come no one's talking about this? How can I get people to start talking about this? And so I started giving talks again, like I said at the top, in the hopes that someone would pick up this research. And a few people have, right? So there's multiple of us now who do this type of work. There's multiple people who do mainframe cybersecurity research. When I first started, I used to joke, my best friend and I, Chad, we would meet up at DEF CON and say that, 50% of the world mainframes hackers have had a meetup at DEF CON, right? Because there's like four of us. And now that that
Yeah.
that number has ballooned to like 30, right? And I know all of them personally. But it's but that's huge maturation
Oh
from
yeah.
where it was 10 years ago where there was no one talked about this platform publicly. No one talked about doing any kind of research or anything like that publicly. It was all hush hush, right? So, the other thing I have noticed is that the industry is slowly coming around to wanting to get the platform tested, right? Like it's been a bit of a slog, but I can like now that I've been here a few years, I can feel that like there's more and more interest in getting the platform tested, right?
Yeah.
Be that from the CISO who says like, well, I'm responsible for this, but I have no visibility into it. How bad is it? Or to the other side of the coin where you have, the system operators who like run the mainframe and they might go like, "Oh, we've never had a pen test before. Let's have a pen test." Right? But that was not an option 15 years ago.
Oh yeah. I still remember 15 years ago getting an off by one IP. I was supposed to scan dot 144 and the guy gave
Oh.
me dot 145 and it took down the mainframe for about 3 hours. And I was scarred after that. I'm like, no, 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 we're not touching mainframes. We're staying away from those. And yeah, to your point, like if that's down long enough, somebody's losing their job and people are
Yep.
potentially losing money. And yeah, 15 years ago, we weren't even touching them. We were staying away as much as we could. And it's great to see that it's matured to where it's at. And, I get to hear
Hmm.
awesome stories from you about all of the kind of cool stuff that you're finding, throughout different engagements. Do you happen to have a most memorable one? Obviously, without, exposing client info or anything like that.
Every engagement to me is like almost like a little mini CTF because the platform is vast and there's so many places that I could take advantage of. So I'm going to use one from a recent engagement that I think is super cool and is really fun. So I'll start with the setup. So the setup was we were given an IP address and that was it. We were given a Linux machine on their network and an IP address. We scanned it. We found that they had TSO. Everyone has TSO. We did a user enumeration And so just because they had misconfigured TSO, and we by default, it's default. That's the default config, by the way, is to let you do user enumeration. You have to turn that off, like
Okay.
manually. Yeah. So lots of almost all my clients, I tell them like, hey, you should be turning this off. This option has been available for 10 years, but no one implements it. So then
Yeah.
we did and most mainframe shops have user IDs that follow a simple naming convention, right? And so we enumerated the entire user space, and then we tried one password against all 30,000 users that we had ascertained. From there, we did a bunch of enumeration, but we found that slash etc slash profile was writable by everyone in a specific group. And it just so happened that every single user on the system was put into that group. So we were able to write to the slash etc slash profile, which is essentially a bash script that gets run every time you use Unix on ZOS. So anytime you do anything in Unix, either be that through JCL or through SSH or just typing the OMVS command in TSO, that script would run as part of your shell. And
Okay.
so all I did was I created the .ssh folder in their home folder if it didn't exist. I then appended to their authorized keys file my SSH key,
Yep.
and then I wrote to a temp file in temp the user ID, and then I let it sit for 2, 3 days, and then I came back to it. And lo and behold, there was a list of users in that temp file. And the third one I tried could write to an APF authorized library. And so from there, I did a privesc to become system. And then from there, I changed my user account to essentially be domain admin on the mainframe. Like it was system special, system operations, which means I can access any file I want, I can read anything I want, I can do anything I want. And if I don't have that access, I can change that level of access in the database.
That is just beautiful. I love
Isn't
that.
that cool? Yeah,
That
that
is
was so
so
much
much
fun.
fun.
It was so much fun. I have other ones like just recently in we found that this one's crazy. We found a web server that was world writable, so like chmod 777. That user was running with elevated privileges, and so all I had to do, and it was a dynamic, so like all I had to do was change the equivalent of PHP for the site, and then it would run whatever commands I was typing in there. And so from there we submitted jobs, and then so on and so forth. But that's the kind of fun stuff. Like I tell people, you know, when it comes to mainframes, it's so new as a research area that everything you're doing is cutting edge, right? Like we're on the bleeding edge of mainframe cybersecurity research.
Yeah. Well, that's such a fun spot to be in too.
It is, yeah. Yeah.
Oh man. And a lot of that is reminding me of we used to call them kind of stupid computer tricks of like we shouldn't be able to do this, right?
Mm-hmm.
And like, no,
Mm-hmm.
sure enough, we can do it, and it makes for great escalation. We used to find them all the time with thick applications,
Yeah.
and I used to do a lot more of those years back, and it's making me miss some of those.
Oh yeah, we do like the green screen apps. We test those, right? And so Michelle Eggers is the one who tests all those. And we find all kinds of cool stuff. So basically those screens are client side locked. So you can just unlock it and make whatever change you want to the screen. And sometimes that leads to hilarious consequences. Yeah.
That is awesome. I've tested a couple of those green screen apps way back, and oftentimes they're like fronted by another thick application.
Mm-hmm.
So we were
Mm-hmm.
almost like testing the terminal app that was connecting to them, and found
Oh
some
no.
very interesting things through those. So
Yeah,
yeah.
the techniques we use came out 2 years ago.
Oh, okay, cool.
And the tooling came out 2 years ago by two colleagues of mine who are at Wells Fargo.
Okay,
They even gave a
cool.
talk about it at B-Sides.
And it's technology that's been around for a long time,
Yep.
and now we're just getting some of these tools. That's fun.
Yeah, it's so exciting. Like it's so cool. Like there's always this little like nooks that you can dig into, and there's just so much to find.
Well, changing it up a little bit here, kind of towards the end of our interviews here, we like to ask folks about some of their favorite things. Do you have a favorite kind of hacker media thing, be it a book, movie, TV show, anything like that?
Yeah, this is gonna sound super cliche, but mine is the movie Hackers. I mean, favorite book is God, this is also super cliche, but my favorite book is Snow Crash. But
Okay.
understanding that Snow Crash is a parody. It's not supposed, I mean, the main character is called Hero Protagonist. It's a parody of
Right.
cyberpunk. It's not supposed to be real cyberpunk. Um, but the movie Hackers to me, yeah, it gets made fun of for its visuals, but I always figured that that's what if there's actually a scene in Hackers, you can watch it as Joey is hacking Ellingson Mineral, and it's the boring mainframe green screens that he's looking at. And then it kind of zooms into the screen and it becomes this like fractal art. And I always imagined like we're not seeing what's actually on the screen, we're seeing what they're imagining in their head as they visualize the environment that they're attacking. That's how I always figured it. Also, things that hackers predicted. One was industrial control systems. It's all about hacking industrial control systems. They set
Yep.
up a virus to disable boats through industrial control systems, right? And how do you prevent that and all those things. And it's all and about insider threat and all these concepts that for the 90s is pretty revolutionary. And also it is a pretty good cross section of diverse hackers, right? Like it's not one homogenous group as like you
Right.
look at the movie Black Hat, or I'm trying to think of other. The closest thing I would say to hackers would be Mr. Robot in terms of like exploring, what it's really like to be in that kind of thing. Are the hacks fantastical? Sure, but it's a movie,
Yeah.
right? I don't
Yeah.
want to watch 8 hours of like there's literally a scene where he's in front of a keyboard for 12 hours and they sped it up for us because it would be insanely boring to watch that.
Yes. Yeah.
Right? But like, have I sat down and
But
written a program for 10 hours or tried to reverse engineer something for 10 hours? Yeah, absolutely.
it's totally accurate.
Yes.
100%. So
So,
you mentioned Chad earlier, and I know we were talking about kind of local security group meetups. Chad's
mhm.
one of the folks that I've known for forever through a local security group meetup. We actually organized a viewing of hackers up on a big screen in a movie theater,
No way.
just
That's
for
cool.
a DEF CON meetup group one time. So that was a lot
That's
of fun.
yeah. Yeah. B-Sides SF hosted one and I made sure to get tickets up in San Francisco because I was like, I'd seen it once in the 90s on the big screen and since then only on VHS and DVD. So God, I'm aging
And
myself. But
well, I will
that's
say
cool.
this was DVD. We basically just hooked up a DVD player
Oh,
to their projector. It would have been nice to have like an actual film print, but you never know. Maybe someday.
yeah, that would be cool. I doubt the theater was probably just playing it off of a DVD player too.
Well, there's got to be film prints floating around there somewhere.
There's gotta be.
We'll get this organized.
We'll do a screening at DEF CON.
There you go. So speaking of DEF CON, I don't want to put that as your potential favorite con here, but do you have a favorite conference?
I have been around the world. I've been to a lot of conferences. I have traveled overseas. I think, it's hard. It's really hard for me to nail down a favorite one because they all have their own little like vibes that I love. I would say the SECTI conference in Sweden was one of my favorites. Not just because it was in Sweden, but the people were really cool. The talks were really interesting. And it did have that like sort of small town, even though it's not a small town, sort of hacker con feel. Uh, I have to give a shout out to the B-side San Diego people. They run a really good con down here. But I got my favorite one is B-sides Las Vegas. That is my favorite con. It's not too big. It's got really interesting talks that you wouldn't hear at Black Hat or DEF CON, or talks that you might hear at DEF CON and Black Hat. Like that's what's so interesting
Yeah.
about it. It's also places where things like I Am the Cavalry present, and it has mini cons within the con, like Password Con, and but it's all very small. Like it's like a tenth the size of DEF CON, in terms of the amount of people they can take in, and I just it's great. I love it.
And for me, I think it kind of reminds me of where DEF CON might have been probably 10, 15 years ago,
Yep.
like a little bit smaller community. You could get into some more of these smaller talks and like have those side channel conversations with folks.
Yep.
Not that you can't do that at DEF CON now, but it's a little bit different nowadays. I would definitely say
Yeah.
that.
Yeah, I am curious how they're going to manage the space they have now because it still to me feels too much like a trade show, and that's not the vibe that DEF CON's going for. As a person who runs a contest there, it's been interesting to see the transition into the new space.
Yeah, having to do merch over
Yeah,
in this giant, just
yeah,
echoey room. Like the wall drapings kind of help a little bit, but like, yeah, those curtains only do so much. It's still quite loud and echoey, and yeah, it doesn't have that same like
yeah.
cozy feel.
You know what's
So
funny?
yeah.
I was just thinking like there's some people who are going to DEF CON for the first time, and when DEF CON moves venue, they're gonna go, oh man, I miss the convention.
Yep. Yep.
I missed the space that I had. I miss how everything was. You know what I mean? Like it's just so funny.
Oh
Like I'm
yeah.
sure there's people I remember meeting who complained that like they were like, remember when it used to be at Rio? No, I was there when I was at Rio. Oh, remember when it was Alexis Park and how like
Yo,
big
yeah.
that was? Or what was the one after Alexis Park?
That was at the Riviera.
Oh,
The
that's at the
Riv.
Riviera. Yeah, I remember
Yeah.
people saying like I preferred it when I was at Riviera when I was at Rio, right? So, eh.
Yeah. Yeah. I don't know if I have a favorite one of the DEF CON venues. They all have their own pluses and
Yeah,
minuses. We popped into the Rio last year. I was like, oh yeah, yeah, it wasn't too bad over here. It's just it's so disconnected from everything else. But
yeah.
like when
So
we were that size, we could fit everybody under that roof, and it was actually kind of nice.
yeah, yeah. Yeah, I mean, I think it's better that it's all in one space. I really didn't like it when it was at that Caesars complex and then spread around Paris and Bally's and or I guess
Oh yeah,
Horseshoe now. That was just I think I'm doing the same amount of walking at LVCC, but somehow being under the same roof makes it better.
I would agree with you there. I remember having to go from the main building over to like, oh, was it Flamingo that they had the
Yeah,
Cloud Village in? And
yeah,
having to go back and forth and back and forth, and just it was just way too much. Logistically,
yeah,
it was a huge pain.
yeah.
But
So yes, to answer your question, besides Las Vegas.
okay, good choice. I think that's kind of a recurring theme with folks here
Oh,
is
really?
typically like local B-sides has kind of been the answer I've gotten from a few
Yeah,
folks,
yeah.
which I love that. I love the local B-sides that I've been involved with. So yeah.
Me too. Yeah. The whole B-sides global community is so amazing to me. And it started from just an idea. And now like almost every town has a B-sides.
Yeah, I have to look them up. We occasionally get resumes that come in and are like, "Oh, I presented at B-sides, whatever." Like, I've I didn't realize they had a B-sides.
Yeah.
Okay, well, let's look it up. Yeah, love to
Yeah.
see the
I think
presentation. Okay, cool.
like some of the places that don't have a B-sides typically had their own con beforehand, right?
Yeah.
I'm like layer one in LA, right? I don't know if LA, I'm sure I'll get an email now that hey, LA has a B-sides event. But LA is so big, it's its own country. Um, but the other thing that's really cool for me for B-sides was it's a place. Initially, it was set up. It's why it's called B-sides. It was a place for where you could submit your talks that don't get accepted elsewhere,
Yep.
right? So like, hey, I did this cool research, but DEF CON said no thanks, but I still want to present it. And B-sides was like, sure, come on over, you know?
Yeah. Yeah.
And like B-sides SF is like that still, where the RSA and B-sides SF happen at the same time or
Yep.
around the same time.
Yeah. They're
Sort of the anti-con up there.
yeah, definitely lots of fun, and I always feel like it's good for bringing local communities together as
Yep.
well. I
Yep.
usually sync up with a lot of those folks there.
Meet other hackers. I will say a very close runner up, very close, is Kakalaki Con.
I've never been to that one.
Oof, it is. It is so much fun. It really has that feel of like not it's about I'd say about half the size of B-sides Las Vegas, but it's just such a community event and everyone's excited to be there and things happen spontaneously like last year I accidentally started a hacker karaoke night. So like it's things
Those are
like that
fun.
where,
Yeah.
I know the bar has 3 seats in it total, right? Like it's not like a huge hotel. But
Yep.
that I think that adds to like the intimacy of it. I'm always a big fan of like one room cons where there's like one stage,
Yep.
because then you get exposed to stuff that you might not have been purposely seeking out.
Well, sometimes for better, sometimes for worse,
Yep,
but yeah.
I agree.
Yeah.
I like to think that yeah, I have forgotten the for worse part.
Yes, exactly. Well, we kind of touched on it earlier, but kind of setting up home labs, servers, that
Mm.
kind of stuff. As hackers at work, hackers outside of work, do you have any other, personal tech project kind of things that you're proud of or that you like working on?
Yeah. So okay. So I run a home lab. That's all I Dockerized the whole thing up a couple of years ago, and I really like Docker. All of my stuff is Docker now. I know I could use Podman or whatever, but I just know how to use. I'll switch eventually. But my personal favorite was this last past Halloween. We did a haunted mansion theme for the house. And I had an old laptop monitor that I had salvaged from a dead laptop, and I bought an adapter for it. I connected a Raspberry Pi, and every day from like sunset to like maybe 10 p.m., it would play the video of, I think it's Madam, I can't remember her name, Madam
Oh,
Leonida,
yeah.
the headless woman that's in the
Yep.
glass ball. So I bought an acrylic glass ball. I put that in there with a wig, and every day it would turn on and play the video full screen, and I could control it remotely through a web interface, which I just thought was super cool.
That's really cool. Yeah, we'll have to talk, around Halloween time next year. We tend to go all out at our house here. We've got a couple of projectors we've set up and do
Oh,
some of the window display things. So we'll have to coordinate next year and
yes, please, yes, because
this.
we I spent so. I'll send you a video
Okay.
of what we made. It's amazing.
And likewise, we've toned it down in recent years, but yeah, we've had a couple of years where we've gone just all out,
That's
fog
awesome.
machine and everything. So,
Oh yeah, we got a fog machine, but I think I'm gonna change the fog machine out because I want the fog to sort of stay low to the ground, not just make it smoky out.
yep, yeah, it's kind of been our problem.
Yeah.
Yeah, we'll have to talk offline and come up with some ideas. Well,
Yeah.
cool. Well, that kind of wraps up the questions that I have for you here. In terms of ways that people can find you online, social media, anything like that, any handles or anything you can point people to?
Yeah, I am mainframed with a D 767. That not don't with the D is not in the name. It's mainframed 767 on every platform. So that's infosec.exchange, which is where I'm active in terms of like social networks. But same thing on LinkedIn, same thing on X, same thing on Tumblr. Just everywhere I could make an account, that's the account. But I'm active on InfoSec Exchange.
All right. Well, cool. Well, if people have any questions coming out of this, they can feel free to reach out to us and we'll get those questions answered. But I really appreciate having you on the podcast today and thanks for the time.
Awesome. Thank you so much for having me.
And that was our conversation with Phil Young. Thanks for joining this episode of Hack Responsibly. If you'd like more episodes, make sure that you like, subscribe, follow all the things, and check out NetSPI's website to get connected with us. Thanks again, and remember, hack responsibly.